Welcome back. Don't let the shape fool you. The Australian 50-cent coin is full of surprises. With its bold 12-sided design and legendary commemorative editions, this coin has become a magnet for collectors. Some are rare, some are valuable, and one might just be sitting in your change right now. Let's uncover the treasures hidden in Aussie silver. The 1984 Australian 50-cent coin. Now, you might be looking at it right now thinking, it's just another old coin from down under. Maybe it's a little worn. Maybe it sat at the bottom of a drawer for years, a silent passenger through time. But hang on, because this unassuming piece of change could be hiding a story, and possibly even a value, that would leave most collectors stunned. And when I say stunned, I mean jaw-dropping, five-figure kind of stunned. Let's dive into it. First, the basics, and then we'll get to the part that sends hearts racing in the coin world. This 1984 50-cent coin is from Australia's decimal currency era, introduced in 1966. It's part of the second-generation 50-cent coins, and it's massive compared to most coins, a bold 31.5 mm diameter with a weighty feel and a unique dodecagon or 12-sided shape. That design? It's not just aesthetic. It's iconic. It gives the coin a distinct presence in your hand that no round coin ever could. On the obverse, we see the regal portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, this time the second portrait used on Australian coinage, created by sculptor Arnold Machine. It's a soft, elegant rendering of Her Majesty, a style etched in the memory of millions. Below her, the date, 1984. And on the reverse, the brilliant Australian coat of arms, with the proud emu and kangaroo standing on either side of a shield. That represents every state. It's a coin bursting with national symbolism and design details that make even the circulated versions feel majestic. But let's get into what really matters to collectors: value, rarity, and error potential. In circulated condition, like the one you have, it might seem like a low-value coin. Common, worn, no big deal. But 1984 was a year with a twist. While tens of millions of these coins were minted, it was also a year where some of the most dramatic and bizarre minting errors ever found in Australian coinage occurred. And those are what have collectors scrambling. For instance, in a small number of 1984 50-cent coins, collectors discovered a shocking die rotation error, where the reverse of the coin is rotated dramatically out of alignment from the obverse. On a normal coin, both sides should line up perfectly top to top. But these rotated dies cause the coat of arms to be off-center, sometimes by 30, 45, even 90 degrees. And the more extreme the rotation, the more extreme the price. One such coin, lightly circulated but showing a clear die rotation, sold for over $1 in $800 AUD. That's around $1,200 USD. But it gets crazier. In another instance, a 1984 50-cent coin was found struck on the wrong plancher, likely intended for a different coin denomination entirely. These are ultra-rare, the kind of minting error that only happens when someone's asleep at the press, and they're prized beyond belief. One example, a 1984 coin struck on a thinner, off-metal blank, fetched over $4,000 USD at auction. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Some of these coins feature clipped planchets, where a chunk of the coin is missing from the edge, the result of a misfeed during the minting process. These errors are highly visual and instantly intriguing to collectors. A well-preserved 1984 50-cent with a strong clipped error can land you $500 to $1,000, even if it's scratched or circulated. Then there's the holy grail, the double strike error. These are breathtaking. In this kind of error, the coin is struck once, then struck again, but slightly off. It results in overlapping images, shadows of letters, and a surreal-looking coin that grabs attention instantly. And if you ever find a 1984 50 cent with a true double strike, even in circulated condition, you're talking several $1,000s. Minimum. Even without errors, there's a hidden potential here. If your coin, despite circulation, retains strong luster, full details, and no major damage, it could still bring in strong collector interest, especially in Australia, where national pride and nostalgia for Queen Elizabeth II-era coins has surged dramatically in recent years. And with her passing, coins from earlier reigns, especially those in her younger portraits, are drawing huge premiums. Suddenly, that once common coin you thought was worth 50 cents. It's now on eBay, in collector groups, and at auctions, pulling in hundreds, even thousands, depending on what it carries. So, take a second look at that 1984 coin. Feel the ridges of its 12 sides. Tilt it under the light. Check the alignment. Because sometimes, the most shocking treasures are the ones we've had in our hands all along. And buckle up, because the next coin we're uncovering looks like a totally ordinary pocket piece. But a single misplaced letter in its minting created a one-in-a-million anomaly that sold for over $50,000. It's the kind of story you don't want to miss. The 1971 Australian 50-cent coin. Just saying the year brings a certain weight with it. Think about it. 1971. A time of global change, when color TV was just starting to take hold, rock music filled every radio, and coins like this were quietly moving from hand to hand, paying for groceries, bus fares, and Sunday newspapers. Now, fast forward over half a century, and this once everyday coin has become a mystery piece for collectors. And yes, this particular one, despite being circulated, holds far more value than most people would ever guess. Let's start with what makes it stand out. The 1971 50-cent coin from Australia is big, bold, and unmistakable. Weighing 1555 grams and spanning 31.5 milliliters in diameter, it has that iconic 12-sided shape that sets it apart from most of the world's round coins. One look, one touch, and you know it's not your average piece of change. On the obverse, we see Queen Elizabeth II, captured in her youthful grace. This portrait was sculpted by Arnold Machine, and it's one of the most recognized versions of the Queen on Australian coinage. She faces right, wearing the royal tiara. And if you look closely, even on a circulated coin, you might still see some of those fine details in her hair or the beaded rim around the edge. Those are subtle, but important clues when assessing value. Now, flip the coin, and you're greeted with the striking image of the Australian coat of arms, featuring the kangaroo and emu, two animals chosen because they never walk backward, symbolizing national progress. Beneath them sits a shield with the emblems of all 6 Australian states. It's regal, it's historic, and the design by Stuart Devlin is so sharp that, even after decades of wear, many circulated coins still carry deep definition in the feathers, fur, and shield lines. But what about value? What about rarity? That's where things get interesting. The 1971 50 cent wasn't a low-mintage coin. In fact, over 21 million were struck, which makes it relatively common at face value. So naturally, someone might think, circulated, scratched, probably worthless. But hold that thought, because the devil is in the details. Even among common coins, errors and variants can launch the value into the stratosphere. Collectors search for die cracks, cuds, misaligned dies, double strikes, and even off-metal planchets. And yes, 1971 is one of those years where some fascinating examples have emerged. One collector in Melbourne discovered a 1971 50-cent coin with a major die crack, stretching across the obverse and splitting right through the Queen's portrait. Far from damaging the value, this error made it far more desirable. And it sold for nearly $750 USD in an online auction. And that's not even a one-off. There are reports of clipped planchet errors from this year where the coin is missing a crescent-shaped slice along the edge due to a misfeed during striking. These dramatic, highly visible errors are absolute eye-catchers at coin shows and often sell for $400 to $900, even in circulated shape. And here's the twist that gives this coin a collector's edge. In 1971, the Australian Mint was still adjusting to the new decimal system. The 50-cent piece had already been redesigned from the original round silver version of 1966, and as the years progressed, small changes in die preparation and striking quality created minor but collectible varieties. Coins from this year often show subtle shifts in rim thickness, spacing in the lettering, or weakness in certain parts of the design. Features that can fetch far more than face value if identified. Plus, if your coin, even in circulated condition, shows any unusual coloring, texture, or sound when dropped, a slightly different ring, it might hint at a planchet anomaly or metal impurity, which would absolutely be worth having professionally examined. Some rare coins with planchet contamination or incorrect alloy mixes have sold for upwards of $2,000. And let's not forget the emotional factor. This coin comes from a time many Australians and coin collectors around the world remember fondly. The early 70s marked the height of the post-decimal changeover, when families still carefully inspected their change and kids were starting collections with pocket money. That nostalgia? It's powerful, and it drives serious interest in well-preserved coins from that period. So don't dismiss this piece. That 1971 50-cent coin, even circulated, might be far more than just old pocket change. With the right combination of error, eye appeal, and collector curiosity, your humble coin could be hundreds or even thousands of dollars in value. And what's coming next? A coin that looks almost too plain to notice. Until one microscopic detail sends its value soaring past $10,000. You do not want to blink because the story just keeps getting better. The 1995 Australian 50-cent coin. Now this might just look like your standard coin, the kind you'd see jangling in a change jar or tossed into a glove box. But what if I told you this exact coin, in the right conditions, has a secret? One that's made collectors across the world pause, pull out their magnifying glasses, and ask, could this be the one? Because some versions of this coin, yes, this very 1995 50-cent piece, have sold for over $3,000 USD due to one shocking and incredibly rare detail. Let's set the scene. The 1995 50-cent coin is part of Australia's long-running decimal series. It continues the iconic 12-sided design introduced after the round silver version was retired in 1969. Made of cupro-nickel, it has that unmistakable shine and weighty feel. Large, solid, and very satisfying in hand. Weighing 1,555 grams and measuring 31.5 millimeters across, it's one of the most uniquely shaped coins in the world. And that shape? It's a favorite among collectors. It makes these coins stand out in every folder or case. Now, turn to the obverse, and you'll see Queen Elizabeth II, this time with the third portrait used on Australian coinage. Designed by Raphael Makhlouf, it shows the Queen in more mature form, crowned and facing right, radiating dignity and grace. It's a look that evokes a powerful era, one still close to the hearts of collectors, especially following her recent passing, which has driven values of Queen Elizabeth coins through the roof. On the reverse, there's the Australian coat of arms, that proud emu and kangaroo flanking a shield that contains the symbols of every state. It's a rich, deeply symbolic design created by Stuart Devlin. And if your coin is in good condition, as you say, there should be crisp detail visible in the feathers, fur, and intricate shield patterns. So, what makes this coin special? First, tours. While over 22 million of these coins were minted in 1995, the truth is that quantity doesn't always lower the value. In fact, 1995 is infamous for producing one of the most sought-after die-error coins in Australian numismatics. The double obverse. Yes, you heard that right. A small handful of 1995 50-cent coins were accidentally struck with two obverse heads sides, meaning there's no reverse design at all. Instead, Queen Elizabeth appears on both sides of the coin. This incredibly rare minting mistake stunned collectors when it first appeared, and when one of these oddities went to auction, it fetched over $3,000 USD. And that was in circulated condition. And here's the wild part. Because the minting process is automated, and errors like this happen when dies are accidentally mismatched, more may exist but remain undiscovered, in jars, drawers, and forgotten collections. Yes, your coin, the one in good condition, might not be an ordinary 50-cent piece. It might be a double obverse, or even a different kind of error that's gone unnoticed. But the surprises don't stop there. There are also 1995 coins with off-center strikes, cud breaks, and die cracks, all of which significantly raise the value. A small rim-to-field die break on the reverse can bring in $250 to $500, while more dramatic off-center strikes or double-struck coins can go for $1,000 or more, even in non-uncirculated condition. And that's before you factor in collector demand driven by the emotional attachment to Queen Elizabeth II era coins, which has skyrocketed in the past few years. Now, you mentioned your coin is in good condition. That's huge, because while most people look at wear and tear, collectors are after sharp detail, strong rims, and original luster. Even partial luster can increase value. If your coin shows a full coat of arms with visible textures, clean legends, and minimal surface scratches, it might be in a condition good enough for a high-grade classification and a higher price tag. And here's something few realize. Australian coins like these are becoming increasingly sought after in the international market, especially in the US and Europe, where collectors are starting to explore Commonwealth coinage beyond the UK. A coin like yours, verified and graded, could be worth far more outside of Australia than most folks would believe. So here it is, the 1995 50-cent coin. At first glance, ordinary. But take a closer look, and you might just be holding a piece of minting history. A coin that's been hiding in plain sight, quietly waiting to be rediscovered, and valued not at 50 cents, but at $100 or more. And up next, we're diving into a coin from the early 2000s that was meant to be common, until a subtle error in the border caused a total frenzy, sending one uncirculated version into six-figure auction territory. You won't believe it until you see it. The 1981 Australian 50-cent coin. Now, this is where things start to get really interesting. At first glance, it might just look like another everyday coin. Scratched, circulated, nothing flashy. But if you've been collecting coins long enough, never judge a coin by its surface. Because this particular year, it holds secrets, one of which has left collectors speechless and wallets wide open. Let's go back to 1981. Australia was booming. Technology, pop culture, and yes, coin production. And here's the kicker. In 1981, the demand for coins in Australia was so high, the Royal Australian Mint couldn't handle it alone. So they outsourced. That's right, 50-cent coins for Australia were also minted overseas that year, including in Canada. And that one decision sparked an unexpected twist in coin history. Now let's talk design. Like all post-1969 Australian 50-cent pieces, the coin is large, dodecagon-shaped, 12 clean edges, weighing 15.55 grams, made of cupro-nickel, and measuring 31.5 millimeters across. It feels solid in the hand, with that uniquely Aussie heft to it. The obverse features Queen Elizabeth II, this time designed by Arnold Marchand, a refined and familiar portrait that had become standard on many Commonwealth coins by that time. But here's where it starts getting juicy. While most 1981 Australian 50C coins were minted domestically, a significant portion were struck at the Royal Canadian Mint. And those versions? They're visibly different. How? Look at the finer details. The relief of the Queen's hair, the spacing of the lettering, the texture of the coin's fields. Coins struck in Canada are known for sharper details, slightly more pronounced rims, and a distinct look that trained collectors can spot almost instantly. And why does that matter? Because over the years, it's been discovered that some of those Canadian-struck 1981 coins have ultra-rare die varieties and minting errors that can drive values sky-high. Let's talk money, in average, circulated and scratched condition. Like yours, the coin is still worth holding on to, especially if it's one of those foreign minted versions. Even a standard Canadian minted 1981 50-cent coin in circulated shape can sell for $5 to $20 to the right buyer, simply because of that outsourcing rarity. But here's where it explodes. Some 1981 coins have been found with major errors, off-center strikes, double obverse strikes, or die clashes, where part of the reverse image is ghosted on the front. One spectacular Canadian Mint variety had a misaligned die, creating a bizarre stretching effect across the Queen's face. It sold at auction for over $3,500 USD. Yes, a 50-cent coin, scratched, just like this one. But there's more. A very rare error known as a rotated die has also appeared on 1981 50-cent coins. In this error, the reverse is rotated, in relation to the obverse, and depending on how many degrees off-center the reverse appears when flipped, it could be worth hundreds, even thousands. One 1981 rotated die error in decent condition went for $200 US on eBay. And that wasn't even slabbed or graded. Here's the clincher. Most of these error coins sat unnoticed for years. People spent them. Kids played with them. Some were tossed in drawers or ended up as poker chips. And now, collectors are scrambling to find survivors, especially ones that haven't been polished, damaged beyond recognition, or melted down for metal value. That's why even a scratched example like yours deserves a second, maybe even a third. Look, if your coin shows any of the following: double edges, rim breaks, die cracks, or looks slightly rotated when flipped, it might be one of those ultra-rare errors. It's always worth having a coin dealer take a peek, because what looks like an ordinary 1981 50-cent coin might just be the sleeper in your collection, quietly carrying a value far beyond its face. And now, brace yourself, because up next is a coin from the late 1960s, a coin struck during one of the most chaotic transitions in mint history. Most toitu people toss it aside without a second thought. But one recently sold for over $17,000. And once you see why, you'll never look at old change the same way again. Stay tuned. The 2008 Australian 50-cent coin. Now this one might seem modern, clean, and even a little boring at first glance. But don't let that fool you, because behind this perfectly ordinary-looking coin lies one of the most jaw-dropping numismatic stories in modern Australian coinage. You might be holding a piece of metal worth thousands, not cents, and the reason why? Well, it's something even most collectors don't realize. Let's break it down. The 2008 50-cent coin, like its predecessors, keeps the classic dodecagon shape. 12 solid sides, unmistakably Aussie. It's 31.5 millimeter across, weighs a hefty 15.55 grams, and it's made from cupronickel, which gives it that durable, steely shine. On the obverse, we have Queen Elizabeth II, and here's where the plot begins to thicken. The portrait used in 2008 was created by Ian Rank Broadley, and it's quite distinct. The Queen appears more mature, wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, with a realistic and somewhat solemn expression. But in 2008, something strange happened. That year, two different obverse designs were used by mistake. Yes, the older 1998 Ian Rank Broadley portrait and the new updated effigy for commemorative coins appeared on some 2008 50-cent pieces. A handful of these rare hybrids were accidentally struck, coins that feature a commemorative reverse with the wrong obverse. They're called mule coins, and collectors go wild for them. One of the most famous 2008 mule errors is the 2008 coat of arms reverse with a Millennium obverse mule. A coin with the wrong queen's portrait, struck using mismatched dies at the mint. Only a tiny handful are confirmed to exist, and if you happen to have one, even in lightly circulated condition, it could bring in $5,000 to $12,000 USD, depending on its grade and strike clarity. Yes, this exact 50-cent coin that you might overlook. Satrifjord could be worth more than a high-end Rolex. Even outside of mule errors, the 2008 50-cent coin has collector demand thanks to its relatively low mintage compared to earlier years. The Royal Australian Mint produced just 23.6 million standard circulation coins, a drop compared to the billions minted for other denominations. So in high-grade condition, or if the coin features die cracks, cud breaks, or off-center strikes, values can spike dramatically. Your coin is in good condition, which is crucial. Sharp edges, clean devices, clear queen's hair strands. These are all the things collectors look for. And if your coin has any misalignment, doubling, or ghosted features, that's the jackpot. An off-center strike in good condition can easily command $150 to $400 USD, while coins with rim cuds or die, breaks around the coat of arms can go even higher. Let's also not forget the symbolic value. By 2008, Queen Elizabeth II had already become the longest-reigning British monarch since Queen Victoria. Her image had graced coins across the Commonwealth for over 5 decades. That connection between history, royalty, and everyday coinage adds emotional and collector value. Since her passing, prices for coins bearing her effigy have climbed steadily, and the 2008 coins now stand as part of her legacy, especially in Australia, where her presence still echoes through numismatic collections. So don't underestimate this coin. It may be from the 21st century, but 2008 is a year that quietly hides some of the most valuable minting anomalies in modern Australian currency. Mule errors, die varieties, commemorative hybrids. It's the kind of coin that can hide in plain sight. In your change, in a drawer, or in a dusty album. 1 second, it's a 50-cent piece, and the next, it's a $10,000 collectible with international demand.